Hey everybody, Eran Dror here from Evermuse. I'm excited to see people introducing themselves from all over the world. So we have some Boston, London, we have San Francisco. Uh, oh, moved to Omaha. Okay, we have Omaha. Nice. We have New York City. Um, People are traveling. Moved from New Zealand. That's cool. Portland, Oregon, awesome. So from really all over the place. I'm calling in from Brooklyn, New York, and then Jeanette, I believe, is calling from San Francisco. And so in a moment, we're gonna call her up on stage, but I wanted to give you a little bit of an intro, both to what this is, also this tool, Crowdcast, and how to use it and a little bit of an intro to Jeanette's work and who I am and what this conversation is going to be about. And then we're going to call her up. So hopefully you can hear me and hear me fine. Please confirm in the chat. I know there's a little bit of lag, but please confirm that you can hear me fine. And today we're going to talk about continuous discovery for product teams in the age of AI. Interesting conversation. And so I just want to start by saying welcome and give you a few tips about how to use Crowdcast. I've been using this platform for many years now. It started in COVID. This picture here is my first webinar during COVID. This was actually supposed to be a live event, and then we got locked out or locked in rather, and I had to find a tool, and I found Crowdcast. So basically, ever since then. So here's how you use it. Basically, the main stage, the area where you see me and the deck, and soon you'll see Jeanette, is just the stage, right? So you're not on it. Nobody can see you. Nobody can hear you. You can do the dishes or yell at your kids or do whatever you need to do while you're listening to us. The way to communicate is the chat, right? And you should feel free to introduce yourself and write whatever you want. If you ask questions, we'll try to fish them into the question section, but really use the questions button, the Q&A button, to ask your questions, because then other people can vote on them. And that's where we're going to start, right? And we're going to start with the top ones. There's also a couple of polls that I put in there just to kind of figure out who we're talking to and what is their level of experimentation with AI. So right now I am seeing a lot of product leaders and a couple of design leaders, and I'm seeing that most people have used some generic tools or maybe some dedicated tools, but most people have only used generic AI tools like ChatGPT and stuff like that. That's what I call generic tools. Hopefully that was clear. This webinar is recorded, so anybody who signed up before the event, you can check in later and maybe finish watching it as a replay. And now I'll just go in and introduce our guest. And this is the first of what I hope will be many conversations. So I'm trying to kind of figure out how to do these introductions. So bear with me if I am terrible. So Jeanette Mellinger, over a 20-year career, Jeanette Mellinger led UX research at companies like Uber Eats and BetterUp and conducted research across 5 continents. Today, she's the founder of Question, a consultancy that helps founders and investors build human-centered companies. In that role, she's partnered with remarkable VCs like First Round Capital, which I bet everybody knows, and Character Capital, and is also working with Harvard Business School, all to help leaders ground their strategy in real customer insight and behavioral science. So that's who Jeanette is and why we are eager to hear from her. She's amazing. My name is Eran Dror. I'm the host here, but I'm also I've been a head of product and product designer for my whole career. Today I'm speaking as the founder of Evermuse, which is an AI company dedicated to help product teams build better, more human-centered products. So hopefully you can see the match in this while we're having this conversation. Incidentally, we were funded by Character Capital, and this is how we met Jeanette. And Character Capital was started by Jake Knapp and John Zaratsky, who wrote the book Sprint. So it's all big, happy product family. So I think this is enough for the introduction. So I'm gonna pull up or pull this deck down and bring Jeanette up. And Jeanette, you can say hi. Hey, Jeanette.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining on a Monday morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are.
Nice. And by the way, I can't see myself. Can you see me on the side of the stage?
I I
Okay.
cannot.
I think I just messed it up. Okay, let me do this again. One second. So I have controls, and now let's see if this works. Okay, now we're side by
Looks
side.
good on my
Perfect.
end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I'm directing as I'm like speaking, which is I never recommend. Um, so Jeanette, I guess I'd love to start this conversation by asking about your journey and what attracted you to research, right? And customer research in general.
Yeah. I mean, how much of my life story do you want to know? No, I'll
Um,
I'll give you the quick version.
you
Um,
got a couple of minutes of like exploration. How about that?
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm sure that we'll actually get into this at some point later on as well as it relates to you all figuring out the roles that you play. But for me, I've always loved people. Some of my earliest memories were my sisters, thinking about who my sister was going to become when I was like 7 years old or something. I then was lucky to go to Stanford for undergrad, where they had the lucky part of it in particular was that they had lots of cool interdisciplinary majors.
Hmm.
So while I thought I would become a doctor like everyone else and study biology, found this really cool major called human biology. That's like why people do what they do from sort of
Wow.
behavioral and cultural perspectives. Found psychology, got a master's in psych, but this was before the D school existed at Stanford. I left the year before.
Wow.
So research was not on my radar, but I had this intuition that understanding people would be part of how we build things. I didn't want to become a therapist, which I thought was the other thing you do with psychology.
Yeah.
I stopped out and started a nonprofit in college. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll be someone who starts nonprofits or starts companies. I better understand people. And then 2 or 3 years after graduation, I had three close friends send me the same user research job description. And
Huh.
they're like, I don't know what this thing is, but it sounds like
But
not only who you are, but also what you've done professionally. So that's
nice.
it. That's why I'm like, how far back do you want to go? But really, I think I was very lucky that it found me and that I got started in the design consulting space where you get to learn how to do it across a lot of different companies very quickly.
Nice. And you eventually, I guess, ended up at Uber and Uber
Mhm.
Eats.
Yeah.
What was that journey like? In I'm I've never worked for like a superstar startup like Uber. And so I've never really seen how it's done, from inside. So
Yeah.
is there, and not to single out a single company, but is there like you
Yeah.
have to fight for more research, or was there kind of an understanding
Mm.
of how important it is?
Yeah. By the way, quick shout out. I know at least a couple of my friends from Uber
Nice.
are on the chat right now, and I always welcome their perspectives too. I'm going to answer. I feel like there's a couple questions in there.
Yeah.
One stepping back, which I think relates to why we're having this conversation today, is that in general throughout my career, I progressively have moved earlier in terms of when I want to play with research. So when I started in the design consultancy, a lot of we did a lot of work for P&G, right? Mega company. And a lot
Mm,
of what they would bring us in for was what's the next big thing? But so much was already baked. So part of my attraction to move to a place like Uber was, and in particular, I joined Uber Eats in its pretty early days. And
nice.
so it felt exciting to be able to bring this understanding of customers and bring additional sort of empathy to an organization earlier, right?
Mm,
I now then eventually moved towards really early stage startups right now. As
yeah.
you were sharing, I work with pre-seed, seed, Series A, even now sort of the pre-founder phase,
Yeah.
as with business school students or just people thinking to start something, because it feels like you need to, of course, understand your customer and of course understand the problem that you're solving from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So back to your question of let's say looking at a place like Uber, part of what was interesting is that I joined a tiny offshoot. In fact, it wasn't even called Uber Eats yet. It was Uber Everything, which was like we're just sort of this rogue group that was like, go figure out what else Uber could do.
That sounds
Um,
exciting. Yeah.
but there was a large organization, like Fun fact, I was Jeanette at Uber.com. That was my email. Like, how did I get my first name at Uber? But I was employee 15,000. Like
Oh,
the
wow. I feel like I lost your audio, Jeanette. Sorry. I can hear. Can everybody hear Jeanette? I think, or did we lose her audio entirely? I would love to hear.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah, perfect.
Okay,
Okay,
great. Wonderful.
thanks. You're
I
back.
love a good tech error. Okay, I think now we got her. Thank you
You got
everyone
it.
for
Okay. Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
weighing in.
Perfect.
Um, but yeah, I was both part of a smaller rogue group and part of a 15,000 person organization. And I was so lucky. And part of the reason I think there's some of my friends on this call right now is that I was lucky to join a really robust UX research organization. I think at its height while I was there was maybe
Mm,
115 people, 120 people, and
wow.
really tightly connected. Molly Stevens was leading the team and is a great community builder and advocate for UX research. And so I was coming in at a time when we were really excited to make sure that we were in touch with our customers. I was there 2017 to 2020. We're like, okay, we need to make sure that that's what we're building into the business more. And also that's what we're building into this new line of business. So it's
Mm.
kind of a funny example of
Yeah, it's an interesting
almost like the
example.
entrepreneur group where you have a lot more resources.
Yeah,
And in
yeah.
fact, actually, I think the problem was that I was almost given not too much permission, but boy, I worked my tail off because there was like, okay, yeah, build the team from.
Yeah. We lost your audio again. I don't know. I don't know if it's something. Yeah, maybe someone is calling or something. Okay. No.
Um, can you hear me?
Yes, we're back.
My phone was doing something very funky in which it was attempting to be smart and connect to this whole thing. I think I've taken it off.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, yeah, but it's all to say that let's see, where was I with that? Oh, it was grow in a like a hyper growth kind of way. Like I
Yeah.
took the team from 2 to 23 in like a year and a half, while also trying to help with the global expansion of our cash payments and in general of our platform, and also wanting to be a strategic partner because I was like, well, we can't just have user research influencing the design and product teams. Like some of the things that we're learning, of course, should be done in tandem with marketing and business development, et cetera.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun, and just it was also a lot.
Yeah. That sounds intense. So I guess this is a silly question maybe to some of us, but um, you can't. I don't think we can assume that every product leader fully kind of is bought into like the
Yeah,
discovery and the continuous discovery process and the research
yeah,
process.
yeah.
So, you know, help me understand from your perspective, why is this important? Like how do we sell this to an already fast growing company?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I guess the kind of like cute one liner is basically you want to make sure that you're building the right thing. You
Yeah.
don't want to just run in a direction. You want to run in the right direction. But if I'm going to give a longer answer, I want to, this actually introduces a little bit of how I would often talk to teams about planning their research.
Mm,
It's think about the desired impact of what you're doing. So usually when you build a research plan, I've seen a lot of teams start with a method. We need to run a survey. We need to
mm,
conduct some interviews. Let's do a diary study. Well, for what? Why? So usually when I
right.
coach teams to tighten up their research planning, it starts with why are you even doing this, right? And so I think we could do the same thing with why bring research into an organization. Right? Reach customer research, user research, UX research, et cetera, is a set of methods, obviously, a lot of methods, but in order to do what? So I believe a lot in, as you're a strategic, thoughtful, cross-functional partner, be aware of the motivations and the priorities of not only your team, but the other teams that you're working with.
Mm,
So with product, you want to be aware of like, well, what are they trying to achieve? Right? If it is this in order to be able to figure out the right thing to build, be able to have as much conviction as possible. And
mm,
also, I'm a big fan of making sure that you are very dialed in to things like, do we know? Of course, you need to know. It's not always an of course for people, but know the strategic priorities of the company, know the strategic priorities of the organization that you're most closely paired with, and be both responsive to be able to help build conviction for the things they know that they need to do, but also I try to work hard to be a proactive partner to say, hey, we have annual planning coming. What
Mm.
inputs do we need in order to be able to be as thoughtful about that as possible? Let me work backwards and see, how far ahead of time do we and other insights partners need to either conduct fresh research or bring together what we've learned in order to actually inform the thing that we're all ultimately trying to do. So back to your
Yeah.
question of how do you get more buy-in? I think I actually believe in almost like doing your own discovery, not just with your end customers, but with your stakeholders.
Mm.
Um, what do
What
they
questions are
need?
on their minds,
Why, like,
right?
why conduct
Yeah.
research? It's in order to make these strategic decisions more effectively. So I think the more that you can also even show up as a thought partner and say, like, hey, let me know, what are some of your burning questions? Or, hey, I noticed that there's these gaps in what we're doing with the product. Can we be one of the tools that help you decide what to build and how to build it most effectively?
Yeah, I like that. And what one thing that where my mind always goes to is like the difference between quantitative, really clear, easy KPIs to measure, and the equally or maybe even more important kind of qualitative, soft things that are really hard to measure. And if you don't proactively go out and seek them out and find a way to organize them and make sense of them, then you'll optimize for something less important. So you might
Yep.
be, you know, driving for short-term growth, but destroying your brand's value or your customer experience, or becoming irrelevant without even realizing it. And so to me, it's like, well, if you already bought into the value of data, but some data is harder to get than other data. So are you only paying attention to the easy data to get, which is only part of the
Mm-hmm.
picture?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that could totally happen. Yeah. And the other thing that I realized I should elucidate here is, again, the other part of research is that in order to have the impact that you all hope to see in the world, you have to effectively serve the humans that are on the other end of it, right? And one thing that worked really well for me, again, I think with also getting buy-in with other cross-functional partners at Uber, was just this simple chart from IDEO. IDEO is a famous design consulting firm. They say that great businesses or great products lie at the intersection of three things. And of course, it's a Venn diagram because this is design,
Yeah.
but it's viability. Is there a business case to it? Feasibility, can we build that? And then desirability, the human element, does someone want it? Right. And
Yeah.
so already that actually led to a lot of really robust conversations that were like, oh, back to the Uber, everything of it all. They're like, oh, when we tried that, I can see why it didn't work because we only had a couple of the bubbles. By
Mm.
the way, the fact that I was even showing that I was thinking about all three bubbles, I think actually created a lot of sort of goodwill and
Mm.
um, like I was trying to show, like, I understand that I'm not trying to push that the only thing that's important is human. It's just
Mm.
that we too often leave it out. And one thing I think that's become even clearer to me since then is that, in a way, the word desirability or what people want can kind of distract you and make you feel like, all right, well, I conducted some research. It seems like people like this. I bet it will take off. Like, great, wonderful that we've all gotten the memo that we need to understand the human and do that. But that's still not enough, right?
Mm.
And because it's not just what people want. It's like, is this something that people actually need? Or
Mm.
did you make it in a way that is easy to use? Or like, have you dialed in? Like, do you know enough about people's behavior and workflows to understand that you can actually fit into their lives?
Yeah.
Because like this world is noisy and getting noisier. Like,
Yeah.
why do I want something else? Nir Eyal has wrote a book called Hooked, came up
Yeah.
with the Hooked model. I'm a fan, and he posits that I think that your product needs to be 9 times better than the incumbent solution. The incumbent solution can be doing nothing about the problem, by the way, or it
Mm.
could just be some other tool you're using in order for people to adopt it. So back to
Yeah.
like, why is customer research and customer discovery important? It's like, if those are the stakes, like, first of all, do you even have that desirability bubble taken care of? But also, like, at the level of how well do you know the people that you're trying to serve such that you can fit into their lives and serve them in deeper levels than just, I hear that, they want a white water bottle,
Yeah.
right?
And also serve them for the long term, right? Like there's
Yeah.
some things that if you only look at behavior, like what makes us click, then you have a very wrong picture of is it actually good for us, and is it actually what we want on a deeper level, right? And so you can build something that's very addictive for a while, but then people rebel and delete the account entirely, right?
Right.
So if you're not connected to the strata of value that you're actually bringing to people's life,
Yeah.
when they think about it, not just when they use it, but when they think about its effect on their life,
Yeah.
then you don't have a business. Um,
Yeah.
and so you call yourself a tech anthropologist, or I saw that label.
Oh my
I
gosh, that was a million years ago in an
I
article.
like that. I like that. I'm a big believer in anthropology, and some of the best researchers I've met in business were anthropologists. But
Yeah. I
what does
mean,
that mean to you? Like, how do you think about that today?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, the idea of of course, it's so funny when are doing an interview and
Deep
mention something
research,
offhand, and
Chat
then
GPT, Chat
it comes
GPT,
up
deep
years later.
research. Yeah,
Yeah. And uh, in this case, what I meant is, I think of anthropologists in this context as like getting in there and actually understanding much more deeply the people that you in this case, well, I guess with most anthropologists, you just want to understand them. In this case, we want to serve them. And that involves, I know that anthropologists rely a lot on getting in the field. They're
mm,
ethnographers, and that's one of the tools, not the only tool, far from the only tool with UX research. But in this case, it's applied to this particular space. But by the way, I'm loving that the chat now has folks not
yeah,
only adding some things that are resonating with them, but also sending around resources. So please
yeah.
keep that up.
Love it.
I love that. And happy to also, Dave, go to town on my thoughts on faster horses from Henry Ford whenever the
Yeah.
right moment comes
Oh,
up.
oh my God. This is one of my all-time hated quotes. And um,
Oh,
no, you don't agree? I think it irks me so much. And the thing is, like, why are we listening to Henry Ford? Because
yeah,
the what he did afterwards and how much he ignored customers to the point where
yeah,
his market basically shrank to almost nothing, even though he created it, is this is not a case study to worship in my view. But
yeah. No, no, no. And when in my even my hesitation for saying for like that noise I made was not that I agree with what he said, but more like I found a way to I think that quote is in a way not misunderstood. Let me just tell you how I normally
yeah,
talk to teams about this, right? Sorry, I
yeah,
just spent the last
let's
week
dive in.
teaching it at HBS, and I have used this exact example a few times, so maybe I'm just keyed up to come back to it. But
Yep,
um, I think it relates to something that is kind of tricky in this space right now. So I love that it feels like companies and teams have gotten the memo that they need to get to know their customers. Right.
yep,
This is both with larger corporations, and as I'm working, the whole reason that I'm an early stage research consultant, first round's first user research expert, was because everyone was like, okay, yes, you make sure that you get to know your customers. And I've been inside orgs that then want to call themselves customer centric. And the way they think that needs to be done is one, you just conduct interviews. That's not the only tool. And two, you listen to the exact thing that your customer says,
yeah.
right?
Just build
So back to the
exactly
Henry
what they
Ford
tell you
quote,
to. Yeah, yeah,
his quote for those who haven't heard it is, if I would have talked to my customers, they would have told me to build faster horses. And what I don't love is that I do see some founders also saying like, okay, well, I talked to some customers, and of course I came from a book. Sorry, we're just gonna
we're
continue to
gonna.
pretend like
Oh my
Henry
God,
Ford said
this
it.
is no, this is amazing. Yeah, let's talk about Henry Ford as if he
Yeah.
said it. Okay.
But I think for anyone who would say, don't listen to the exact thing that your customer says, I sometimes see that as dismissive from founders or
Yeah.
it's not just a founder thing. I just happen to work with a lot of founders right now that then they say,
Mm,
oh, well, maybe I shouldn't listen to them or maybe I shouldn't believe them. I'm like, let your customer tell you that they want a faster horse, right?
yeah.
It
Yeah.
is your job. So the way that I break down analysis, by the way, is that I like to do it in three parts. And this is after every call, or this is in, all the way over to larger affinity diagramming or other larger synthesis exercises. Start with data. Data is qualitative, quantitative. What is the thing that, you could hear? It's a quote or something that could be caught on a camera,
Mm,
or the things that they don't exactly say. You notice that they start to lean forward and they end up talking for 10 minutes on something, or make a certain noise before they say it. They repeat a term. These are
Mm,
also how people say things, or what else, again, you could catch on a camera. And then after you have that, you move to your insight. What does it mean? Why does this matter? Of course, after you've done more extensive research, what are the patterns across it, et cetera? And then you move to action. What am I going to do with this information? What I
mm,
see often is that people just jump to two or three, right?
mm,
So back to faster horses. Someone tells you, I want faster horses, I want a white water bottle, whatever it is. And either they take it immediately to be that's an insight, like, oh, the people, they want the faster horses, right?
yeah,
That's what the market needs. Or action, like, okay, let me go build a faster horse. And I'm
mm,
like, fine, let someone tell you they want a faster horse. Put in the data column. And then it's your job to know your customers well enough that you understand where that ask is coming from. Like, who here is perfectly self aware?
yeah,
Not me, right? So it's not your customer's job to know exactly what their actual deeper problem is. And they're certainly not, probably, the best product designers, product creators, et cetera, in the world. It's not their job to know what needs to be built either.
yeah, yeah,
So you need to think about why they asked for that. What's behind that? So get to know them well enough. Maybe the core need behind a faster horse in that context is, oh, is this about like our lives are just, starting to move too fast? It's a bit overwhelming. It feels like I can't even operate in the laws of physics. I need a horse that's faster than has ever happened before because I need, convenience or I need scale for myself. Or maybe it's like a status play. That's I want to feel like I'm the latest and greatest. If you're solving for convenience, versus status, like your solution will be totally different. I cannot
yeah,
tell you the number of very smart and very well funded teams that I see that are like, I just want to hear my customer tell me that they want
yeah.
this or that, and I'll put it in my
Let's
pitch
make
deck.
horses faster. Yeah, let's make horses
Yeah,
faster.
but like it
Um,
takes more time and headspace to get to the space where you say like, well, what is that
yeah,
actually about? That's how you get to your deeper insights, and then figure out. Then you go off and you do your brainstorm and say, okay, what are the various ways that we can combine status with convenience? Or actually, it's totally different brainstorm depending on which of those you think is the need that's driving it.
yeah. Like Dave is onto something. Like this is something like I always say when people bring me this quote is like, there's no way anybody would have said I want a faster horse. That's not something that sounds like something that doesn't do user interviews describing what user
Right,
interviews actually
right.
sound like, and they don't sound like that. But I agree with you. I agree with that point. Is like it's not their job to tell you what to
Yeah.
build. They understand their needs or how they're thinking about their needs, and you still need to process it beyond that. So I want to take
And
us into. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
just one quick clarification on that. I also
Yeah,
do not think that any person, myself included, no matter how much journaling I do, is perfectly in touch with all of their own needs either. This
for
is
sure.
your job to also read between the lines and say, what might that be about? Not to try, obviously you can try to uncover more of those by probing and understanding the problem from a few angles. Of course, trying to understand why, but it's all to say that I also don't think that you should rely on someone to perfectly articulate, here is the problem, here's the gap in my life, right?
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I want to take us in the direction of AI because I think that's the
Of
big
course.
thing that everybody kind of is thinking about. And one of the most obvious kind of ways this is introducing itself into our world, which is kind of software startups and companies, is the vibe coding, right?
Mhm.
And you know, we're doing a ton of vibe coding or a ton of AI coding. At least I wouldn't call it exactly vibe coding because we have engineers actually doing that, um, but it's an amazing thing. You can write a lot more, you can build a lot more, but it kind of feels like it could be a trap. Like what are your thoughts about vibe coding and how does that relate to discovery and research?
Yeah, I mean, I think that with uh, not even just a vibe coding, with AI tools, or even with your planning, with your research, like if it's garbage in, it's garbage out, right?
Mm,
Like, and so part of what we need to be doing with AI is being aware again of what are we trying to achieve on the other side of this, right? So maybe this is less vibe coding, and maybe this is more just use of AI.
mm,
part of the reason to do research is not just to understand some like a particular customer. It's in order to make a decision as a team,
Mm,
to know how to build, right? And so, for instance, if you're relying on AI to do all of your research, sorry that I pivoted part of this question, but I think it's because it feels like the larger piece is still you need to figure out what is in general most important for you
mm,
or your team or a specialist to do versus AI. That's across any application of it, right?
mm,
Um, and as it relates to, again, using AI in something like research, I think you need to think about, well, part of what our job is to do is to not only hear what's happening, but
mm.
also internalize it and be equipped to make a better decision, right? And so in this case, it's you can put all of your transcripts into AI. And the first problem that you might recognize from the discussion we just had is what if all that it does is repeat back to you quotes and
Yeah.
just faster horse, or whatever that is, right?
Mm,
It's only kind of a one-dimensional analysis, right? There are other things I think it's not yet good enough at in terms of understanding context and nuance. Even when it gets there, if you are still the one who is needing to make the ultimate decisions for your company, just reading more things. We learned this years ago with research. I can't go do a project and throw a beautiful, very insightful deck over the fence to someone and expect that they're going to do something different with it, right?
mm,
And it's great
mm.
because now AI can be our beautiful, insightful deck that's thrown over the fence to us right away. Isn't that
Yeah.
cool? It's very satisfying. But that doesn't mean, like, one, of course, in terms of the garbage in, garbage out, like, what was your prompt? What was
Yeah.
the data that was fed into it?
Yeah.
So in general, where's the coaching there? But
Mm,
then also, it's certainly not there yet with analysis.
mm.
I don't know why it's so hard to create great themes, but I'm not impressed there. But regardless, even if they're perfect themes, you as a decision maker need to actually understand what's going on. And I think
Oh
that
yeah.
that is just incredibly hard to replace. So even back to vibe coding, like how do you know like what guidance to give it, right?
Yeah.
If you haven't already um, like really understood what is the problem that we're trying to solve, what are we trying to help our customers achieve, because I think that sometimes the speed of it is just so, god, it's so tempting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I am not nearly as skilled at vibe coding as you are. Like my attempts with it so far have not been wildly helpful, and so in the end I
Mm,
end up probably putting in way too much effort on the other side of it because I haven't yet figured out
mm.
how to wrangle it as the right tool. But I think that what I'm trying to encourage us to do is to make sure that we're not outsourcing our thinking,
Yeah.
right? Like the mechanics of stuff that like we either don't need to spend time on or don't need to have as much skill for, great. Like
Yeah.
get help with that. But for instance, I was talking to some founders this weekend with the HBS teaching I was doing, and they're like, "Oh, how do I think about like what to give people in terms of incentives for interviews?" It's like that's not a thing that you need to deeply internalize. I'm like,
Yeah.
that to me feels like a great question for AI for like this particular type of customer,
Yeah.
like and this type of interview in this type of market. Like, what's an appropriate incentive? I feel like probably some decent information out there that the language model is drawing from, and you don't need to deeply internalize that, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
even how you think about your research plan, or certainly how you think about what you're learning, like you need to not outsource that thinking. And I worry a little bit that with like all the noise and speed in this world and in all the companies that we're in, it becomes so tempting to spend even less time
Mm.
like doing the quality thinking or crafting or even the you know, guidance when you're doing the vibe coding such that you get something that's really meaningful on the other side.
Yeah, and you can work yourself into like some really bad corners if you can build so fast. And the thing is, people don't tell you this, but you know, you kind of get stuck with what you built. If people are using it and saving their data, now you have to migrate it, and then you discovered it. No, you built
Yeah.
it wrong. Now you have to figure out
Yeah.
how to change course.
Yeah. You
So
can just build in the wrong direction very
yeah,
fast. I mean, that's the
yeah.
summary, right? Like make sure
Um,
that you know which direction you're pointing before you do that.
yeah, I totally agree with that. And on our website we have like a comparison of what AI does and what humans do. And we're pretty opinionated about that. Like we think that humans should do the talking with other humans. And
Right.
the AI can help you summarize it and can help you kind of collect it. It can help you organize it, but it shouldn't be. I I don't believe that AI is good enough to do the interviewing and the connecting and the eliciting authentic real feedback
Right.
yet.
Right.
But there are startups that do this, right?
Yeah.
um, but I think that decision of what's AI, what's humans,
Yeah.
and it might be a dynamic
Yeah.
equation because AI is getting better, but um, I think
Yeah.
is really, really important.
I mean, I think there's two pieces to that. Again, it's yeah, the quality of the inputs that you get with the interviewing. I do still think humans are more skilled there. But again, you also need to think about like, well, what am I trying to do? Who's outsourcing it? I think that there are
Right.
plenty of times to um, like you don't have to do every darn, you know, whether
Yeah.
it's interview or any number of other methods that you can be employing, you don't have to do every single piece of it. You need to figure out when is the right time for me to be really close to it and go deep versus
Yeah.
not. But it's back to like, how do you build conviction for yourself? Like, I think there's some good self reflection that can be done here. Like,
Mm,
how do I have clarity on what to build next quarter or next year? How do
mm,
we as a team do that? And also, one thing that I saw, especially when leading big teams at organizations, is that part of the value of research can also just be reconnecting the team with their customers, which builds empathy. Like humans are wired for empathy and connection. Like, how do you stay sane when you're doing your 996? Right? It might be that you remember and you feel connected to the people that you're trying to serve with it. Like it's even at Uber, we put researchers on the most strategic topics, but we really did want to pitch to have a researcher who was just like basically just doing empathy projects. So we're like
mm,
actually probably just continuing to find ways to immerse our teams in the experiences of our customers, especially in the case of restaurants. Like a restaurant's not a person was
mm,
Carolina, my team's favorite saying. And like a lot of us aren't restaurant owners, or we haven't worked in the front of house or the back of the house. How do you understand that? The more that you understand those nuances, it not only feeds your eventual product instinct or your ability to build, but also just keeps you motivated and connected to what you're
yeah.
doing. And it's kind of this other quiet benefit that doesn't necessarily as concretely linked to our ultimate KPIs, but like actually keeps people really connected. And I don't know that we voice that, but that's probably more important than ever that like
Yeah.
you have to keep the human in your work. Like
Yeah.
however you think want to think about the word human in there, you still want your work to feel human. And I think that if we lose that, like, I don't know,
Yeah. No, I think
gets
that's
hard for
really
a number of reasons.
I think that's really tough. Like, but with AI, like my dream for this is like that AI can free us to be more human. That you could spend more
Yeah,
time empathizing
yeah,
and talking because you have less time
yes,
tagging and like organizing,
totally.
right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the mechanics, the stuff that like, if you're honest with yourself, is just probably not the best use of your time or your brain. Great. Absolutely. Thank the Lord. Right.
Yeah.
And then keep the other things for yourself. It's funny. I had a bad concussion a year and a half ago,
Mm,
and I had to take a couple months off work. And coming back to like the tech world after that, I became very aware of what is a good use of my brain or not. And what do you know? This,
mm,
I mean, everyone's concussion is different, but for me, like just lots of frenetic input. What do you know? Lit up my brain.
mm,
But sitting and doing some deep thinking and creating felt great,
yeah.
right? And I'm still very aware of how much can be in this space of just throw lots of things at you. Like, what a beautiful thing to maybe try to find a way to not have um, to be able to maybe digest some of that stuff and or not use your brain on the like the mechanics that take longer than you, the tagging that may not be worth those chips, and
Yeah.
instead use them for the things that are.
Yeah.
Um, I feel great about that.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. So I'm curious about your use of AI. If you can
Mhm.
tell us, like, what are some tools and practices that kind of made it into your your practice today, and yeah, anything you see emerging that seems interesting.
Yeah. And I'm happy to share. I think it's changing a ton. And also remember that I am not doing right now a ton of primary research myself. I am helping other teams think about how to do their own, right? So the answer would be different if you were talking to me and I were
As
leading
a
a
researcher
team
inside
in-house
a
and doing a
company.
lot of that, if I were an IC researcher versus on my own. And honestly, part of the way that I use AI is I will continue to ask ChatGPT, like, what's the new tool that I should be using? Because I will say it feels like there are more tools by the minute.
Mm,
And
mm,
so, some back to like some of the mechanics that are really nice to improve. Like, oh my God. I mean, the first one, this is old, but is just video transcription and tagging, right?
mm.
Oh my goodness gracious. Like, I actually
Yeah,
did, this is how long I've been in this career. I did actually at one point in an early project fully like listen to customer calls and fully transcribe them. I cannot tell you how long that takes. Oh my goodness
yeah.
gracious.
No,
And by the way, I
that's
love that people are
insane.
adding things in the chat as well.
Yeah,
So
please share
Fathom
your
is
favorite
another,
tools for sure. I'm
yeah,
gonna add in my tool, Evermuse, but
of
everyone
course.
else add yours. Um, but yeah, like I love like when I'm on a call with a customer,
Yeah,
I take notes, and my way is to collect how might we questions, or like,
yeah,
or user stories, because that's what
yeah.
we used to run a lot of design sprints. Um, but it connects your brain and your ear in a way that not taking notes doesn't. So I actually don't think note
Oh
taking
yeah.
will stop.
Right.
Uh,
Oh yeah. I've always been a manual note taker, but yeah, whether it's something like Otter or Fathom, or
yeah,
that Fathom's another character company,
yeah,
that can make sure that you have the transcription, can help you make sense of it. I still, back to like, you don't want to outsource your thinking. This is part of why I love to still take my own notes and do my own thinking right afterwards, right after a
yeah,
call, to say what was the data that stood out to me about it? What are the insights that I had from it? What do I think that I would do differently from it? And then, I mean, I also do this with stuff like Notion AI. Like, I use a lot of those sorts of um, tools that
yeah.
are part of the other tools that I've already been using, right? Whether
Mm,
it's Notion or um, uh, like, yeah, I think I saw Figma in here. Like, a lot of the tools that like user interviews, I've been sending people to a ton
yeah.
for
We
years,
use we
and
use
they,
user interviews. We love user interviews for
yeah,
sure. Yeah.
they're great. They also have more. So like, there's some of it is within the tools I'm already using, and I'm exploring others. But no matter what, I'm still trying to not outsource how I think about it. I'll use it then as a double check.
Mm,
Or for instance, um, even if I'm just going to use something like ChatGPT, like for instance, I was making my slides for HBS. I was like,
yeah,
I'm going to make my own slides. I know how I think about this. The way that
yeah,
I think about discovery is not like, I'm going to do it on my own. And also, it's different than what a model would pull anyway. I don't trust it at all to make this in the
yeah,
way that I would want. But boy, can I do something clever with, like, here are my slides. My audience is HBS. You've seen that I've written these various articles that are published on First Round. Here's this
yeah,
other deck that I'm comfortable feeding to you. And I'm going to walk and do a voice memo and think out loud about the point I'm trying to make. Can you then be my editor?
yeah,
Like, here are the slides. What did I miss?
yeah,
Like, what is another angle here? What would the criticism be from an HBS student versus a person at this VC, versus the team at Evermuse? And like, I'm a solopreneur. So it's a
yeah,
fun way to push on my thinking, but not to make my thinking.
yeah. 100%. Like, I think one of the opportunities that I see with AI is to do the kind of work that is completely non-scalable with humans, right? So
Yeah.
so for instance, um, what if I had a team of 20 note takers joining me on every call, and one of them
Yeah,
was just collecting needs, and one of them was just collecting pain points, and one of them was just
totally.
and that's essentially kind of how we built this. Is like
Yeah.
we want to build a dream system that is not even possible to do with humans, and then let the humans do what they do best, right? Which is look
Totally.
at these patterns, analyze them, think about them,
Yeah.
and when they're on a call, focus on
Yeah.
absorbing.
Totally.
Um, And
Yeah, I know.
so
And I mean, that's why I talked to you about the data insights action breakdown and
that's right.
such. Like part of what is amazing that you can offer is the ability to have access to a lot more disparate forms of data to round out your understanding of then even as you go then to the insights mode.
Nope.
Part of it is that you'll have more inputs to say, oh, that's interesting that in this particular setting, like when I'm conducting the interview, here's what I heard from a customer. Or if I did a diary study, with them, here's what is showing up. Versus, oh, in that setting, here's what's happening. And like, that's great that now I have more to apply my big brain to.
Yeah.
um, and there's going to be others who want to use it differently. So no, I think that it gives you more eyes, but you still need to know what to do with that. Like the thing that we all have to be aware of that I'm very sensitive to is just noise of
Yeah.
inputs, noise of things to go through. So I love that what you're building at Evermuse helps people, helps with some of that noise, but also you still need to know what you're looking at and decide how you want to use those tools in order to make your own decisions, right?
Yeah, that's right. Like I think one of the things that I'm thinking about is like how to keep the small, high quality, deep interactions that really kind of spark something that, make you connect. While also at the same time, what AI allows us to do is to go very broad, like just increase scale and
Yeah,
always run, always be analyzing, always be collecting, right?
yeah.
And so, how do you balance these things? Because I think
Hmm.
there's a couple of qualities there that are interesting. Like research can be done almost in real time. Like you can have
Right,
insights 5 minutes after a call is over.
right.
They can also be done across the board, every call,
Yeah,
every interaction.
right, right, right.
But then how to, but that might be shallow, or it might be deep because the person decides what to collect, right?
Yeah,
Um, and so it becomes almost more like an intelligence operation with real
yeah.
time insights and briefs, and then I think you still need the more thoughtful kind of research, slow human approach.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that the way that I've started to think about it is um sometimes I think, I mean, by the way, this whole democratizing of research thing started years and years ago, even um, before AI was part of it. Either way, how do you make it so that in general we can be getting more customer input along the way? And democratizing at that point was also just having other functions besides UX research conduct
Mm,
um, the parts of research that are maybe less necessary to have deep expertise in, right? But sometimes what I would see with teams, or even the ones that want to jump onto this like continuous customer discovery thing, is that it's like they're doing okay research or like fine research kind of all the time. And especially the problem is that if every day you're getting some new answer, it can be very easy to be a little thrashy, I think. And so, in a way, I almost would rather have like light collection and then figure out the moments to go deep. Light collection,
yeah,
figure out the moments to go deep.
I like
And
that.
I'm actually not trying to make a plug an article I put out there, but in case it's helpful, if people want to check out this framework, there's something that came out with First Round last month on improving your customer discovery process. And the way I think about it is like my ideal world, you are sometimes incubating the thing that you might need to be making a decision on. You're like, okay, we're gonna need to do um, our strategic planning in 3 months. Let's plant some seeds and think about like, okay, well, what might be the big topics to think about? Let's make sure that we have some data that's starting to be collected. And then
Mm,
after incubation, you go into immersion. You like pick some time to really go deep. Say like, let's set other things aside and let's actually maybe make a dedicated research project, but or a couple of them, or spend a week
love that.
synthesizing all these, like actually go deep into it.
I love
Then the
that.
final step is integrate. Yes, that's the article cat. And then the final step is integrate. I love a good behavior model. And this is like also if you've learned something, make it easy for yourself to figure out how to then bring that into your work. Like the things that make it easier for a customer to integrate your product into their lives. I like the BJ Fogg behavior model that basically says you need to be motivated, something needs to be easy, and you need to be prompted. You should also do
Mm,
that for yourself. You've just done this big, beautiful thinking. How do you make it as easy as possible to then
mm.
integrate that into what you're building next, integrate that into what you're doing afterwards as well? Maybe move that into some of the next sort of incubate cycle. But that's one way that I'm starting to articulate these
It's the three
different
eyes. I
modes.
like it. I like because it
I do
had to be an
love
eye,
alliteration.
right?
It's so
Yeah,
great.
so great.
I didn't want
Um,
to force it, but it happened.
no, it's yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
So I want to give you one last question from me, and then
Hmm.
I'll go in and kind of pick some questions from the audience. But
Cool.
anybody who has a question, please go into the Q&A tab on the right and ask your questions there. We're going to pick some questions and see if we, how many we can answer. Okay, so this is, you know, have you are you a Star Trek fan? Have you watched Star Trek:
I've
The
seen
Next
some of
Generation?
it. I wish my husband were here. He
He's a
was like a
big Star Trek
major
fan.
Trek as a
So
kid.
I,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want you to. Okay, so I was gonna say, imagine that you're Q from Star Trek, and you can wave
Okay.
your hand and make like any future,
Oh,
any
okay, okay.
future world.
Mhm.
That's my less boring way of asking the magic wand question. But if let's assume that AI continues to get smarter and better, um, and its breadth is wider, right? It can
Yeah.
pay attention to more data at a time, and that's the trend we're on. That's the world we live in. How would you like that to be harnessed in the service of what you're doing?
Yeah.
What is a good outcome here?
Yeah. I mean, I think that probably the most optimistic thing that a lot of us are pointing towards is like, how do you use it to take away the stuff that's back to what we were saying before, not worth your chips or you don't have the skill in, and instead leave space for us to actually be able to connect with one another and envision things that never were possible before, right?
Yeah.
And there's a couple dimensions to that. It's not just like, okay, please do the things I don't want to do. Though I do think that the more space, however it is that you create space to actually think, that's some of what that both Incubate and Immerse is about. And like you can have access to connecting the dots, not just collecting a bunch of information, but actually connecting the dots for yourself.
Yeah.
Um, is I think where so much more richness that we're able to offer the world and one another comes from.
Mm.
And of course, like AI is going to be much smarter at a whole lot of things than me. So may that also enrich the ways that I connect those dots and help offer a sense of possibility that I didn't know was there. Maybe back to our faster horses discussion, like no one would have thought that was possible.
Mm.
Fine, help push my thinking. Some of the best things that have happened to me in my life have been when someone has kind of blown my mind and I didn't even realize that something was possible or there was another drastically different way of doing XYZ. Like may it also expand some of our thinking instead of
Yeah.
just crowding it.
I love that. Let me share my dream for AI. Is if you go into a company, you sometimes see tensions between departments and roles, right? You see engineers only caring about engineering, and designers only caring about design, and researchers only caring about research, and product people only caring about, I don't know, market, go to market or retention or growth, and the thing is there's an underlying reality underneath, right? And how wonderful would it be if we could use AI to get in all of those points of views into a form that everybody can consume and everybody can agree on, and everybody, and when there's a disagreement or a difference in perspective,
Yeah.
you can ask these nuanced questions, right?
Right.
And so and then everybody does their job better. The decision maker makes better decisions. The researcher is
Yeah.
free to feed better information and to collect better information and ask better questions, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the world that I hope to see.
Yeah.
So let's go to the questions. There's a couple already there. First one is just my mock question, so I'm going to dismiss it. And then let's start with the next one. Okay.
Okay.
What advice would you give to a recent grad trying to get their first entry level job in the UX space? Qualification, Bachelor in Human Factors Psychology with a minor in Design Thinking
Mhm.
from George Mason University. That's very specific.
Love it.
So, yeah.
Thanks for the question. Yeah, I mean, goodness, it is a crowded space, and back to like bringing the human into it, I cannot believe the interesting professional opportunities that I've had from talking to humans, like good old informational interviews. For anyone who hasn't heard of this or hasn't done it, oh my God, I think that this is a huge way to go about finding your next career move. An informational interview is, I think the interview word in it is distracting, but it's basically chat with people before you were ever thinking of applying to a role, and see, like ask those people about what it's like to work, in this case, maybe in human factors, right? Maybe, and it's at some particular company that may or may not have a job open, but one that gives you connections at an array of different companies, but also before you're in that mode of, I need to get the job, you can actually hear from someone like, what does your job look like? Tell me how you got your job. That'll probably give you ideas. But then also, for instance, I was doing this when I first moved into research. I was trying to decide, should I stay in educational nonprofits? Should I go into management consulting because I love solving problems, or should I go into user research? And it was very clear when I was having these conversations. I was like, no, oh my gosh, I just um, flipped off the camera. Did not mean to do that. But
I
um,
missed it completely.
it was very clear that the day hearing about the day to day and hearing about the experience of the user researchers was much more compelling to me. And then by actually asking people like, how did you get here? I ended up being connected with the first design firm that I worked for, and happened to go chat with them again out of just pure curiosity to see how the person there had done it. And they're like, actually, why don't you just come help us for a sort of a summer contract, see how it goes. And so a little bit of letting yourself go try it, but also you don't know where these conversations will take you. It also gives you time to practice without the pressure of the full application. I would not, sorry, LinkedIn, I would not just send your resume in with all the other people
No,
on
yeah.
LinkedIn to start, but I would go hear about people's experiences in that role at companies that you find interesting, go in with something you are genuinely curious about, not just trying to get the job, and then you never know what will happen from there.
Yeah, and I would add to that, like people do reply on LinkedIn when you're asking for advice, right? So if you find someone that where their job excites you, just reach out, say, hey, I just graduated. I'm not looking for a job. I'm just looking for some advice.
Yeah,
And people are nice in general.
yeah.
So
What's one nugget of, make it easy for them? What's one
yeah,
nugget of advice? Or here's a Calendly link to a 15-minute call if you're
yeah,
open to it. But
yeah.
or yeah,
I'm I guess more rude. I asked for 30 minutes, but yeah, no, I guess it's good. All right. Hopefully
either
that's
way.
helpful. Okay, next question. What are your thoughts on how to best speak to value of qualitative insights to those
Mm.
conditioned to hearing quant KPIs and such?
Oh, Connie, go check out this. There's a lot of different ways to message it, but I think there's actually a great, though sort of overwhelming chart from Nielsen Norman on when to use which UX research methods. Actually, it'll probably take me only 1 second to pull it up because I have done this so many times. And it has a great chart that shows qualitative and quantitative. There you go, it's in chat.
Nice.
Qualitative versus quantitative, and behavior versus attitude. And basically, the qualitative piece helps you understand more of the why and more of the depth. And the quantitative helps you understand how much and like make sure that you've got the right signal. Behavior versus attitudes. People love behavior. Like this is what people actually do. But if you don't actually look at, let's say, their attitudes, and that's often aligned with qualitative methods, so it doesn't have to be, then you don't understand where that's coming from. So you're like, great, they dropped off at this point in the flow, but you won't know why. So what you need to do is across all of your methods, like you don't want to only lean on qual, you need also quant. You don't want to
Mm,
only lean on attitudes, you also want behavior. So you want to think about, again, remember, think first about the decision you need to make, then what do you need to learn, and then choose which method, probably from an array of points on that chart, is the right
yep.
tool for the job. So I would also go back to that desirability, viability, feasibility thing too. Like, okay, with what you're building, how are you getting a read on this piece, that piece, that piece? And here's qualitative research as a tool to understand, the desirability. And often, like, honestly, is this functional? Is this something that people can use? Of course, um,
Love
as
it.
part of that. But help speak their, like, make sure that you're showing. that you know what their priorities are, and that you're thinking about what's the right tool in order to help them make the strategic decisions that inform those priorities.
Love it. We're officially at time. I'm curious, Jeanette,
Mm-hmm.
if you can go a little bit overboard because we have a
I
couple
can go a
more
little bit
questions.
over. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And thanks
Um,
for everyone who, by the way, has joined. I've loved the discussion in the chat. Don't be a
yeah.
stranger if you're taking off now. You can always find me on the internet, but have
And
really enjoyed this. Feel free to keep going.
that's right. And then there's a recording if you want to come back later and see the end.
Yeah, of course.
Um, would love to hear your thoughts on reconciling desirability with flawed human nature, a culture of want things, making people feel like they
Mm,
need something and then selling it to them versus solving actual
yeah.
human challenges.
I mean, that's
Uh,
why I have a problem with. Oh, sorry. You can finish reading it. I had read the rest of the question.
I think the rest of it is just a comment about anti-capitalist, anti-consumerist product and
Yeah.
UX researcher here. Okay, sorry.
No, yeah. No, I hear you. And that's even part of why, again, I started with that. Like, desirability is almost the wrong word for it, right? Is this something that people actually need? This should not
Mm,
just be what people want. Like, why is this something that's actually quite important to them? And listen, like, it's it's going to be your choice as that researcher to figure out, and that product leader to figure out what you feel comfortable working on, right?
yeah.
um, Part of what was interesting is, like, as I alluded to earlier, I started in the nonprofit space, and I was hesitant at first to jump over into UX research and design research, because the ways in that I was finding were much more focused on things that were outside of the impact space. At other points in my career, I then have pulled in a lot more impact work, and I wanted to always work on teams whose missions I feel good about. When you're first in a design consulting company, you can work on lots of different things. Like, worked on a project around microwaves, for instance. And I never thought that that would feel good or feel jazzy to me, but my job was actually to be like, well, who are the people that need the microwave? What is happening here? Like, how often is this about, and we were, redesigning an interface, but how much of this is about someone who's trying to put healthy food on the table and they do not have enough time or enough resources for other different reasons to be able to
Mm,
do that other than with this. I don't want that to seem like I'm deluding myself. Like, that's clearly not the only reason that people get microwaves. I didn't
yeah.
have a microwave for a very long time. Whatever. But it felt like it was my job to help reconnect the team with who is the person behind this and what things that are really important to that person could we have the opportunity, by being something they might buy, to actually help them achieve something that's deeper than just, please make it easy to click the right button on my microwave. And so part of what I've loved about this work is being able to try to subtly shift just the mindset, and again, that level of empathy of the leaders who are making these decisions as part of how I do this work, right? Um, Alina, it's also tough. Yeah, make sure that you work on something you believe in.
Yeah. I would say as an afterthought here, there's clearly companies that do what you say, right? And
Yeah,
very kind of short term, kind of almost manipulative. And there's also clearly companies that create great product that bring great value into people's lives, and it's kind of your choice, and or at least you can try to navigate towards the second kind.
yeah,
Um, so great. Okay. Let's see. We only have a couple, only two more. So uh, let's take one more. Let's see. Okay. Do you have any
yeah,
framework when conducting customer research?
yeah.
This is a question
Oh,
from
I
Hunter.
love frameworks way
Yeah.
too much, Hunter. If you're still in the call, I saw that question come through earlier.
Nice.
I mean, unfortunately, I have frameworks on frameworks, but some of it is that, and you can actually find this in the first round article that I put out there, which I can put also in chat right now. Hold on, let me put it in the right chat view. So
Cool.
the first framework is just generally that I think about. This is hardly even a framework; it's just steps. But some people have found it helpful to think of it this way: plan, learn, act. Like, when people are thinking about doing their research, they'll often think of just the learn mode. Like, what's the method? What are the questions I need to ask? How do I ask better questions? And I'm like, you need to actually be quite intentional about how tightly you're framing and that sort of impact orientation that you have and that focus that you have in the research that you're conducting up front. how do you maximize the learning phase to be able to ideally in a triangulated way be able to get a few different views and actually get an understanding as much as possible of your customers, and what's actually going on. And then act is the third piece. Like, are you actually spending um, enough time to do rich enough analysis and deep enough analysis to get real meaning from it? And then bridging that to something you're actually going to do. Not just, oh, that was a nice project. Let me put it in a research repository, never see it again. There's actually, that's its own real step. Within it, that framework for plan is start with impact, then think about your learning goals, and then your approach, right? And that's participants, type, methods, etc. There's a whole separate thing we could do on my favorite framework within learn mode, which is make sure that you're zooming out before you zoom in and then back out again. See that in that article. There's a lot more to that one. And then in analysis, I come back to the framework, that data, and then insights, and then action from it. So I have lots of other frameworks I like to think about, but those are the ones I do the most.
I wish we had time, and everybody go follow Jeanette on, wherever she's advertised. Where you put this stuff? Is it LinkedIn mostly, or?
LinkedIn's probably easiest. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
cool. And we may do more events. So I have one final question. I think it's an interesting one. It's a group of people apparently watching together, and they're asking,
Oh,
in the
cool.
current market, how can one navigate a career in
Ah,
UX? So besides the normal advice of like networking, conferences, etc.,
yeah.
what would you say
Hmm.
to that?
Maybe this is a perfect thing to end with because I think it goes back to where I started with when you asked me how I became a researcher, and I was like, how long do you have? A bit of this is be really in touch with who you are, what you can uniquely offer, um, in and out of work. The more that I've stayed in touch with, here are my skills as Jeanette Mellinger, and the ways that I, am able to do my best work, my most focused work, the ways that I connect most with stakeholders. What do I believe that others don't believe? The more that I'm in tune with those things and I'm unapologetic about bringing them into my work, frankly, I think the better my career has gone. And that's even how I, for instance, inadvertently found research. I was pretty in tune with like, I don't even know what I'll do with this degree. Why am I studying human biology and getting a master's in psych? I don't yet know, but one, I know that I'm fascinated by this stuff. It feels easy, but also rich and really important to me. And I have an instinct that there will be a way that I'm going to use it, even if I don't yet know what that is. And by knowing that about myself and being that person, those things then found me. And even back to like at Uber, again, maybe I probably work too much, but I was like, I know that my job is to do this, but also I believe really strongly in making sure that we as stakeholders are sharing insights and also listen, I care about my team. Like, I care about them as people. I'm going to ask them a lot about who they are. I'm going to run some really extensive career conversations that I may or may not have time to do, but that's just who I am as a human and how I want to show up. And we had I'm like really proud of the depth of the relationships and connection of our team, even as we were going through a ton. And that was me showing up as me. And I think it made me a more effective leader. I think that then years later, I still feel quite connected to folks that I've worked with. And I think, I don't know, I would just don't be shy about realizing who you are and what else you want to contribute besides what's just on the JD. Like, do the stuff on the JD, but also bring those other parts of you in, and I think that will make you better at what you do now and will inadvertently tee up the thing you don't know you're going to be doing next or later.
I love that. My advice would be similar. I think uh, read broadly, follow your interests, follow your where kind of what the things you're attracted to. A lot of the stuff the value that I bring today is stuff I learned, in my history degree, or that where I wrote in my thesis, or stuff that
Yeah.
I just read for fun and then suddenly connects. So be a more curious human, and also be
Yeah.
curious about the tools too, because that keeps changing. And if you're the person who understands the power of these tools and their limitations too, right? Like just because you've used them, then you make yourself more valuable to any organization, right? So
Yeah. I mean,
um,
that's the final framework that I love that was in that latest first round article I put out, is that this could be its own separate discussion, but um, I think of finding founder fit, like you, and you are the founder. This just means human fit. And in this case, it's a Venn diagram between the founder or you as a human, the problem you're trying to solve, and how you solve it. And the point there is that there's an overlap, right? That you figure out all the things that you can bring to the table, which might be totally outside curiosities. And like, how do you bring that into choosing the problems to solve and also how you solve it? And like, the other final kind of fun fact is that a lot of people have seen the Steve Jobs graduate commencement speech. That was at my graduation. We had no idea it was going to be
ooh,
that big of a thing. But in it, he talks about the fact that he dropped out of college and then was just dropping into classes that he was curious about. One of those was calligraphy. And like,
that's right.
what do you know? Apple's famous for its design language, and that was its own revolution because Steve not only was saying, I have a great design mind or whatever, but they're like, I have this thing that I love. I can imagine it being applied here and now. Like, don't be afraid of bringing those things in that are in like a back pocket.
100%. That's
Yeah.
great. All right. I want to say thank you to Jeanette and thank you to all of you for
Yeah.
joining us today. And, it was great. We're going to keep doing these events, about every month. And if a lot of people ask for a deep dive with Jeanette, and I'm happy to do it. This was amazing. And yeah, thanks so much, Jeanette.
This was great. And I've really enjoyed the not only your thoughtful questions, but really the energy and thoughtfulness of this group. I wish I could read every quote and every question there. But it's been fun. Please, remember you're part of a really rich community. And uh, it's not networking. Back to the other advice, it's not networking. It's just actually contributing to others, and being part of an engaged community like this really matters. So thank you for that.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
All right.